The Super Metal Brothers podcast is the best. Really great stuff. I was in my car listening, and I was like, there just is not a better podcast.
You listened to Typo Negative recently, right? For the first time, right?
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, when you were first telling me about that song, like Everybody Dies, like I thought you were just being facetious, you know, just saying some cliche shit that gothic people would sing about. But then I listened to it, I was like, oh no, everybody in this dude's life just fucking died, I guess.
Yeah. It was like, these guys are for real. They're really that depressed all the time.
He's like, my wife's boyfriend, he died. My second cousin twice removed, his landscaper fucking died.
I like when he does the R rolls.
Dude, can we talk about Peter Steele for a second? Because holy shit, what an absolute fucking unit of a dude.
Yeah, no,
I'd
he's
even
giant.
realize he stood at 6'8".
I didn't know he was 6'8". He looks like a big
fucking
dude.
6'8", dude.
His voice matches that.
And he had like, you know, when people are just too big, like Andre the Giant, they have like that mongoloid face. That's what he had.
Yeah, he did. Well, he obviously was a vampire that lived for hundreds of years and finally got staked at the end of his life.
Was there a thing with them being vampires? Was that like part of their aesthetic?
I mean, that's the way it felt. I mean, because you think about it, you watch like any vampire movie, it's like always a fight to not be gay, you know, but over time you just get gayer and gayer. And eventually you're just kind of like pansexual. You just like everything. Because I mean, like you're just running around.
The vampires are the ultimate fuckboys.
Oh yeah. They seem like they were fighting against it. Like they had some religious ideation, like they were closet gay.
The vampires were?
Yeah, well, Typo Negative. They were vampires.
Oh yeah. They were something. Yeah, I listened to October Rust, and I actually really liked that album, but I do agree with you that World Coming Down was probably their best one.
People, I think, would say October Rust is their best.
Actually, it was funny because I was thinking if they wrote songs like today, you know, like the ideology and like made everything all PC, because that song, Be My Druidess, which, side note, it's fucking hilarious that, all the gothic dudes also play D&D. Wow, what a surprise.
Yeah, right.
Be My Druidess is a fucking banger, by the way. But if they had wrote it today in like the current political climate, I thought it'd be funny. Instead of Be My Druidess, it was Gender Fluid Druid.
The Gender Fluid Druid. Yeah. Be my Gender Fluid Druidess. Or Drew. How would you even say that?
Yeah. It's Peter Steele will make it catchy somehow.
He does that.
My girl, and that what was the other one? My Girlfriend's Girlfriend. That was a really good one too.
Yeah,
I liked
those songs. I always thought about Forgetting Sarah Marshall, the movie, how like the lead character in it had this idea of like this vampire opera with puppet thing that he was doing.
Yeah.
And like at the end, he started his show. Like the music in that is like obviously inspired by Typo Negative.
Yeah.
I always wondered like if I could find out, is there any connection there? Because it was definitely close.
What's that? Do you even know that dude's name? The dude from Forgetting?
I
Whoever
can't
you
remember.
are, come be on the podcast, man.
Yeah. maybe he's a
know.
diehard Typo Negative fan.
Yeah.
Or he just did that not knowing what it was, one of the two.
Dude, I was actually watching. It would make sense that like vampires are gay. One, their fingernails are always on point.
Yep.
Two, I was watching Interview with a Vampire the other day when Tom Cruise is like sucking on Brad Pitt's neck for the first time and they just like float up into the air and like Brad Pitt like comes himself. Like, how is that not like the gay fantasy?
I know. It's almost as gay as Top Gun.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And well, I like to think, because I was watching that movie too, and it was funny in the beginning, like where Christian Slater character is like, it's like, I collect stories. Like, were you following me? I was watching you, watching me. Like Christian Slater was just cruising for gay sex, and then obviously in some alleyway, and obviously the pick of the litter is going to be Brad Pitt.
Yeah, it's like go to a rest area, dude. Quit walking around the streets. That's where you find it. No, like that movie made me think if like you're a vampire, you really got to choose the people you turn wisely. I mean, I guess that's what the whole story is about.
Yeah, well, and after that movie, it's funny that you bring up the gay vampire thing because I kind of went down this rabbit hole where I discovered like there are definitely parallels between like the hyper-sexuality of vampires and like the movement of gay people. Now, there's a lot of like online like LGBT like vlogs and like publications and shit that like draw these lines. So obviously, it's probably grasping at straws, but it kind of makes sense. It's like here's this dude, he can't go out in the day, which by the way, the gayest iteration of vampires is obviously Twilight.
Yep.
Dude walks out into the sun and just glistens like diamonds. Like that's again just playing into the gay fantasy.
Yeah.
Very flamboyant.
Yeah, with their perfect nails and glistening like diamonds.
Wouldn't it be funny? Like, we should write a movie about gay vampires, a dark comedy, but I think it would be hilarious. Imagine like getting chased by a gay vampire and then he just bursts into a swarm of gay bats. And then as they're swarming you, they're like nibbling on your earlobes. And then you look down and there's like a little bat like dry humping your leg like a chihuahua. Or I thought of like what else would be funny if like he morphed into like one big bat and then like you're standing there and all of a sudden the moon above you, like the moonlight becomes obscured and you gaze up in terror as this like giant gay bat descends upon you and just fucks your brains out.
That sounds fun, actually.
Yeah.
That actually just gave me a new fantasy that I'm totally going to be a part of. Weird transition. We planned today to do a review of a newer album. It's like maybe 2 months old at this point since it's been released. Is She Must Burn, Umbra Mortis. After our last podcast, we decided to review Tala's new album, which I hadn't really heard at the time.
I was really happy when you called me about only a few days later and I was driving home and I was so happy. You're like, dude, I made a mistake. Fuck that new Tala album. Let's review Umbra Mortis instead.
I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a review because we don't want to just do reviews where we like only albums we like. But the problem that I was having is that there wasn't much that I liked about it. I didn't want to spend a whole hour.
So to
talking about
Tala's
something I don't
credit,
like.
and we may come back to it, but I will say I did like the first half of the album, kind of fell apart during the second half, the latter end, and the vocalist is really good. Again, I still stand by my comment that he might be one of the best in the game, but they're still figuring out who they are because there was a lot of chaos in the album, which is fine. But when I think of chaos, like the controlled chaos, like I think of, I Wrestled a Bear Once, Ion Dissonance, Arsonist, Get All the Girls. It's like a controlled chaos and that's like fits within what they're doing, where like it felt like this must be what is going through the head of a meth addict when he's coming down.
Yeah, it kind of does sound like that. A lot of new metal, as you said, influence in it. At least it sounds like it. And
oh, dude, when you had mentioned like the Seven Dust,
yeah, Seven Dust.
I heard it immediately. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there was Head PE in there and Machine Head and shit like that too, which was nice. But yeah, again, the latter half of the album just kind of fell apart.
It's just not for me. I know there's a lot of people excited about that album. I just couldn't find anything I was excited about. But I'm sure there's other people who love it. So in lieu of that, we decided to do Umbra Mortis, which after hearing that was when I decided to change the album review because I just thought, man, maybe this has been done 1,000 times. But for me, it's the first time I've really given a good listen to something of this style, to like blackened deathcore style with female vocals along with male gutturals. The whole thing for me is kind of new. I know other people have tried it, but I don't know if anybody's doing it as well as She Must Burn does.
Well, I think there's definitely been iterations in the past with like things like Winds of Plague, Bleed From Within or Bleeding Through. I always get them mixed up. The one from Australia that had a female keyboardist, and then you have Make Them Suffer, obviously. Like
Everbloom or a Never Bloom.
Yeah. So there's been iterations of the past, but so far, I think, honest to God, this is like the best iteration we've gotten so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've seen too. That's why I was excited to review it. I'll start off with just some history of the band. So they formed in 2014, She Must Burn. I think that there's only one original member that's still there, that was there in 2014. That's the guitarist. I think his last name's Threadwell, right?
Yeah, James Threadwell.
James Threadwell.
And he's also in a band called Defects, which is like more gent metalcore, but
Gotcha.
they're pretty good too.
Yeah, so they call themselves actually Black and Deathcore. That's the genre that from the website that I found. They're from London, England. The moment they have 2 full-length albums and 2 EPs that are out. The current album is using all the members that have with the band since 2017. So it seems like all of them joined on and they released their last album in 2017. So they released an album, then the whole band changed at some point in that year, it seems like.
In fact, yeah, because I'll go over the members real quick. So the current members are Kyle Lamb on vocals, who's also a part of a Trust and Unclean. When you had told me that, now I can't unhear it.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, that makes total sense. Dude's a monster.
Their new single's a banger too. Love it.
Yeah. Then James Threadwell on guitar, also in Defects. Frankie Keating on bass. Valis Valkova, vocals and keys. Jack Higgs, guitar. He's also in A Night in the Abyss, and he does vocals for another band called Into Infernus. And they're all kind of the same style. Like they're just like different, like kind of styles. But
did you mention the drummer, Steve?
Steve Padley, is the drummer.
He's from a band. He's Nex Vila, I think it's pronounced, as well. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's another one I saw. They all seem to have their own thing going on besides She Must Burn. So I wonder if this is more of a side project that's becoming a priority project or vice versa.
I would say with the current, because people are definitely noticing, and we'll go over the past members, but yeah, this album is definitely getting some acclaim and raising some eyebrows. So I think people are starting to pay attention because I'm seeing it posted on Reddit. I'm seeing it posted on random metal Facebook groups and stuff. People are definitely talking about it. So it's garnering some success.
We actually, I would plug in that I'm sure the band hears this a lot because you mentioned Velas, and God, she's sexy.
And she doesn't
surpassed Courtney LaPlante for me.
I mean, they're both sexy, but Valis, if I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
I've never heard anybody say it, so I'm assuming
I've never even heard that name. So excuse me if I'm butchering it. But and she's insanely hot. She knows it because she has no problem being naked.
No.
She was naked and so that I'm trying to think. I think it was Misery Eternal that they released in 2017 as a single. So they started or they implemented this almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, she came on in 2017 from what I could see. Almost all the band members that are here now started in 2017 from what I could tell.
Yeah, in their previous album, the album released in 2014 titled Grimoire, and you can tell that the band absolutely changed because if you listen to both albums separately and you had no idea, they would sound completely different. Where Grimoire sounded more like a metalcore album and kind of some like Bless the Fall, and they had like Blackened moments in it still. Almost entirely different band, even from the past members. Let's see. Joseph Lewis Sinclair was on vocals, Johnny Davies guitars, Frank Corsair bass, Amy Miller did keys and vocals, and then Daniel Ristic on drums. Yeah, kind of crazy to see. I think this is like the sound that they really wanted, but it's crazy that the entire band just switched up. Like, I wonder how it went down. Now, I did see a tweet from back then from Amy Miller. They were definitely having some because she left right after Grimoire released pretty much. And she said that they were definitely having some conflicts with the music and who plays which part. Because if you listen to Grimoire 2, she didn't have nearly as many parts in the album, like standout parts, as Valis did in Umbra Mortis. No. So I wonder if that was maybe a key factor in her leaving almost immediately.
I heard a lot of maybe Amy Lee influence, there in the old stuff. The older female lead singers that we've heard in the past. I think Velas brings something different to the table that I've never heard, which is opera. She's a trained opera singer.
Right.
From what I can tell, she's been trained since she's 12, and she's actually been in opera. She's experienced at it. That seems more like her vibe anyways. This is something she's doing because she's an opera singer, but opera singer is her first priority, at least it seems like.
Well, I could see obviously a lot of, female vocalists in this genre are going to take, inspiration from Amy Lee. Valis, on the other hand, I could see her taking inspiration, I'm sure from Amy Lee as well, but also I I think her name was Christina, the lead singer of Lacuna Coil. In fact, a lot of this band, now that I'm thinking about it, I could see taking a lot of inspiration from Lacuna Coil.
Yeah, most likely. That was the part that I think that really came together when they formed this band in 2017, this newer She Must Burn. They really decided on what they want to do exactly. It seems like Kyle, his vocals are very trim and great. Like he's not doing a lot of craziness. He doesn't bring any nonsense. It's just straight deathcore vocals. And then she's really bringing the nuance to it.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to do craziness. He can just be straight deathcore, and she can bring the flavor, makes them She Must Burn. Because definitely without her, I really think that they would be basic deathcore.
Yeah.
You know,
they would probably,
not in a bad way, but there wouldn't be much more. I mean, she plays keyboards and she does the opera-like vocals, which gives them the whole flavor that they have. So they're a great, I think, deathcore band by themselves without this. But now that she's adding that flavor, they made something unique.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And they would lose some favor. I think they could stand on their own 2 feet without her. They would just have to, there would have to be something to fill that void.
Yeah.
Whatever that was.
Yeah, the keyboards can be done otherwise, but her vocals are definitely pretty crazy, I think. So it looks like as of today, as of December, they have 11,000 active Spotify listeners. I think that's going to change, especially after the new year. I think they're going to get a lot more. The album name that we're reviewing is obviously called Umbra Mortis, which means Shadow of Death. Length is 38 minutes. There's 10 tracks, 8 songs, 1 intro and 1 interlude. That's like a little piano part for about 1.5 minutes.
We're in agreement that a 3-star is not a mid score, right? Like that's an above average score if we were to give someone a 3 out of 5, right?
Yeah, I would say 2.5 or above is
a good score.
Good. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we'll just get right into it. So the first track just goes right into it, called 9. It's not a huge gripe, but it's like definitely Halloween Town style intro with like cryptic Halloween witches and broomsticks type shit, which is okay. It fits the aesthetic for the band, so I'm not too upset about that, you know.
Yeah, well, I think 9 would have been an intro for the second song, The Rats in the Walls. I like that they gave you the option that you don't have to listen to that 1.5 minutes of the song to get to the meat of it. So it really feels like an intro to The Rats in the Walls.
Well, that's what I was going to mention, because it leads well right into Rats in the Walls, obviously. So pretty basic intro though. Nothing too notable, but I think it's good and it fits with the album.
Sets a stage, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Second one, Rats in the Wall. Overall, great opener to set the theme of the album and what you're going to expect for, the rest of the album. Yeah, this one was good. It's definitely not my favorite off the album in its entirety, but overall I liked it. But there's nothing really notable about it, I'd say.
So there's a sequence about a little bit before the 2-minute mark in the song where they go into this like kind of slower tempo breakdown and then they kind of pull out of it. I like that type of stuff. So that was cool for me. And they have like this melodic guitar, then Velas comes in with this vocal, and then they have a really long mosh sequence that whole part, which is like kind of, I imagine if I was at a concert, it would definitely pull me into the pit. I wouldn't be paying attention to the band at that moment.
No, it would definitely. So the way, and they have it set up that way already with like, I'm sure if they were coming out on stage, 9 would start playing, and then all of a sudden the lights come on, and then the Rats in the Walls, they start going hard and everybody starts fucking moshing. Like that's the perfect setup for basically coming out on stage and just fucking getting right into it. So it's perfect in that regard.
We can go to the second track, or third track actually, of Blood and Bone.
I do love this one. It starts off with kind of a twangy gent intro, which I love those bits. And then right after that part, at about 34 seconds or so, it goes into like this thrashy gent verse, accented perfectly with symphonics. You want to play that? Love it.
Yeah, I really like that part. I actually got a few parts on that song too that I really like. Actually, I think the best solo on the album's off of that. This is it right here. He does all these like sweep picks, and I'm just on sweep picking right now. And right at the very end, he throws in this weird chord. At least it sounds weird in context to everything, where he kind of changes it up, and it just has this awesome flavor. Kind of makes your face like, squint your eyes a little bit and rock your head. Here it is. that by far was the best solo on the album, I thought.
Delicious.
And it actually was mixed well, which
Yeah.
I'll say that was my only gripe with this album, was that some of the like kind of solo guitar parts, maybe even, I know you mentioned some of the ambience, you'll probably mention that here in a little bit, where I wish it was a little bit more forward in the mix.
There's definitely parts, like there's some guitar parts and some drum parts that definitely could have been come up in the mix a little, especially like I would say for the drums, some of the blast beat sections that are in some of the songs. I'll get into that later. I guess the snare and the hats and the toms all sounded pretty good. It was really the kick that needed to come up. But overall, I think across the board, the guitars could have come up for sure.
Well, definitely when they're both playing at the same time and you got something going on. But also I wanted to say on Of Blood and Bone, I thought this was Velas's best vocal performance on the album.
Yeah.
And she actually had two parts. So she does this thing where she had a lot of like where she was the forward singer. She was the one adding all the vocals and Kyle was taking a rest. But also she does this thing where she follows the guitars in the background. And I just love it. It's my favorite thing about the album. I think it's what gives it all the flavor that it has. And I have a couple examples. So the first example is right before the second example. So they're all the same part. But here's number one. And I think she's doing like this real eerie, like almost, it would be, if you did it on guitar, it'd be like a tremolo pick. It's really cool. Check it out. She does a like thing,
yeah, like
in
the
background.
bravado.
Yeah, it's just it's so eerie, and just like without that, there wouldn't be all that flavor. And she actually, there's this part in the song where she starts singing, and her voice that she chooses this like tone and accent to her voice. She just sounds to me like an old vampire, like something like that. Like she really sucks
like
me in.
Elizabeth Bathory, like bathing in the blood of virgins.
Yeah, here's that part right here.
My days release me from
And that riff that comes in right there, I didn't get that one sampled, but I don't know if you'd call that one a breakdown because it's kind of the pre-chorus.
No, because it leads back into that like twangy gent that was into the intro.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
That's like the best riff in the album. I actually think Of Blood and Bone is probably in my top, definitely my top 5 on the album. It was tied for first for me.
It wasn't for me, but it was definitely in my top 5. But yeah, great song. Was that one a single? I can't remember.
So that one is Of Blood and Bone was released in 2019. So it has the most streams on Spotify, but it's also been around the longest on the album, I'm pretty sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, that one's amazing. I think everybody's gonna flock to that song in particular, probably be their most popular. Actually, that's leading into the next one, which is titled after the album, Umbra Mortis, which I think you were saying based off Spotify is actually their most popular song.
It seems like it. I don't know. Spotify's kind of weird, so I might be wrong on that. There's other songs that definitely have more streams, but it lists it as higher. So I'm not sure how it calculates that, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, so I know me and you were discussing this earlier. You said you didn't really care for it. Umbra Mortis would be in my top 5 as well because it's just so frenzied as a track. It just like, it's fast paced. It's got that snare just fucking bumping. And I really like that part. One of my favorite parts of the song was at around 2:19. There's just this machine gun rhythm groove. That was my favorite part of the song for sure.
So for me, Umbra Mortis was, I didn't think it was bad. It just was definitely overshadowed by a bunch of other songs on here. Umbra Mortis is probably the last song that I would go directly to. I'd hear it in playing the album, but I wouldn't be like, oh, I want to hear Umbra Mortis. That would be like Souls Asunder, Incantation, A Blood and Bone would definitely come first. The Serpent, especially.
Yeah. And then there was another section like towards the end of the song that I really enjoyed too, because it gave me like huge like Shadow of Intent vibes where there's like this choir symphony overall being like the title track, I thought it was well executed. So I enjoyed it in my top 5.
Fair enough.
Moving on to Eulogy, which is definitely the album ballad.
Definitely. It is. It's as close as you're going to get to a ballad on this album.
But this is part of the where I was talking about that the guitars, I know they're supposed to be ambient, but they definitely come up in the mix.
You want to play that part?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, right? I feel like if those were brought to the forefront, I think it would have served that song a lot better, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think the riff sounds cool. And I know what they were trying to do. This is more of like a supportive riff, so they bring it down. But I think that it's cool enough that it should be kind of in front.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of chugs in this album. There's chugs galore. But like those parts are actually, they don't have much of. So that's kind of why I wanted to hear that ahead. So I agree with you on that one.
The breakdown on this one was pretty solid too. Enjoyed the breakdown. But I will say the standout of, and this is my personal favorite for Valis and her singing part, she has this part around 3:19 that just, it's by far the best fucking singing part, in my opinion, of the whole album.
Yeah, this one right here.
Just one last time, make you take back each time you wish to die. This pain resides.
Yeah, that's more to me what you would expect out of a female vocalist on a band
Right.
like this. It's not like, it doesn't seem as much opera inspired by her history, but it's catchy as fuck.
If the clip had gone longer, like it definitely does end with that opera bravado part where she just,
Yeah, she
right
breaks
before
into
the
it.
solo comes in.
But I do like where she strains her voice on that one note.
Yeah,
That's a part that catches me every time. It just has so much feeling behind it.
right.
I loved it.
Yeah. All right. So this would be track 6, Misery Eternal. This was definitely by far one of my favorites. And this was like the first single, I believe. The reason I like this one the most is it had the most blackened elements and feel to it than any of the other songs, in my opinion.
Yep, I felt the same.
But this was also another example where the blast beat sections feel low in the mix. The kick needs to come up higher across the album, but it does have one of my favorite sections in all of the album. It's right around the 140 mark. Yeah, I love that part. It just fucking hits, dude.
Yeah, that part's pretty dope.
All right, track 7, A Truer Hell. Basically a dark piano interlude. Fits the theme of the album well. I kind of wish Valis would have explored more and gone right off before transitioning into Incantation. There should have been like a buildup with like some grand like symphonies in this interlude leading into the next track. I would have liked that. Again, it fits well, but kind of took up a slot for no reason.
I actually have always been interested in learning to play piano, and it felt like it was maybe a piano part that I could try to learn.
Yeah.
And it has that eerie feel because I'm weird. I don't want to learn any. I'm not learning like Kumbaya on the piano. Yeah, but they gave us the same thing. It was kind of an intro to Incantation. At least it felt like it. And I like that they gave us an option to not have to listen to the minute and a half if we want to get straight into Incantation. So that
Yeah,
part's
they
cool.
respect the listeners in that way, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was their whole idea, but they definitely pulled it off for me. So that's cool.
All right, leading into the next track is Incantation at number 8. My opinion, not a bad song. This is where we'll disagree. Not a bad song, but it definitely felt like the weakest on the album for me.
Yeah, see, for me, actually, I thought it had the best breakdown on the album. I'll play that right now.
Yeah, that was kind of another Shadow of Intent vibe.
Yeah, definitely very Shadow of Intent. Yeah. I would actually probably put Incantation in my top 5. So we definitely differ. So I think Umbra Mortis and Incantation were mixed. So
Yeah, fair.
the next song on the album is Souls Asunder.
This one was my favorite track on the entire album.
It's definitely top 2 for me. I had the most to say about it, definitely.
For me, the best chorus on the album by far.
And I would even add, you see, like how both singers they struggle sometimes to fit in the words, which to me says that these lyrics have some kind of meaning. A lot of singers they mainly hum out their vocals, and then they add words that fit into that, like syllable wise. I feel like they wrote these lyrics first and then fit them in. At least on this song, that shows in that chorus.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think about that. Well, and it's got to be difficult when, like, if they all take a part in the songwriting process. Like, obviously Valis does for sure, but or is there like one person who kind of orchestrates everything? Because that tends to happen in some bands.
Yeah, I would definitely ask them that question, especially with all the band member changes. I wonder how that's working. I actually thought that Kyle's best performance was on this song as well, and that's this part. And I love how the band is following his vocal on that. His vocal's taking the lead completely. It's so forward. Everything's supporting what he's doing. And I wish more bands did stuff like that, because I feel like a lot of other bands aren't doing that. You have great vocalists, but you're not letting them take the lead as much. The drummer's taking the lead or the guitarist is taking the lead. So I really like that.
No, I think when you have someone who's as versatile as Kyle is, dude, you have to let him just fucking have those parts, man, because like you'd be doing yourself and the band a disservice to just not let him just go the fuck off.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Especially coming from a Trust Unclean, because that band goes even fucking crazier, like way harder in the fucking paint with his vocals.
Yeah, he has ability. Yep.
I kind of hope, whatever they're doing in the future, I kind of hope they grant him a little more freedom in that aspect. But I could also understand, like, they want to be separate from a Trust Unclean as well.
They've been together for 5 years, so they've definitely learned to work together, but he doesn't need to be, in my opinion, as crazy as he is in a Trust Unclean, because, like I said in the beginning, Valis gives him that extra edge that he doesn't have to give it, because there's something so wildly different from what he's doing vocally that he can just keep it kind of in a box,
nice and tight.
Yeah, exactly. So Souls Asunder, and then the last song, which is my personal favorite on the album,
It's Serpent. My second favorite.
It's the most moshable. This is black and deathcore. Historically, I'm not into black and deathcore. They truly are the first blackened album that I've loved.
Careful, the purists will come out and fucking call you a pussy.
I don't give a shit. Fuck them. It's like, hey, I'm gonna draw a line. If you're one of those guys on Reddit who thinks like Elegies like gets your dick hard, then I'm sorry. I feel like this one was better than that. It's still, Elegies all right. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's solid. But yeah, back to the Serpent. Yeah, definitely hardest track on the album.
Even this opening riff, I got this right here. That's going to pull me directly into the pit, like when the song starts. And that's what I love about it. It's like,
oh yeah,
no fuckery. Let's go straight at it.
But it also had like the second best chorus where Valis and Kyle kind of like share the duty, which I liked.
what I like about it is they don't give you that much throughout
No.
the album, which makes it more special when it comes.
Right. Yeah, I would say definitely the best breakdown on the album, in my opinion.
That one pretty good. It's pretty
Yeah,
rough.
people are fucking flailing around during that shit.
What I really liked about all their breakdowns, though, is all their breakdowns are a journey. Like, there's very few where they just give it to you and go right back into the song. It's usually like a huge chunk of the song where they go through this sequence of riffs and guitar and drum parts and vocal parts. Each breakdown is its own little song inside the song. So I like that a lot.
All right. So I'd say, what's your top 5?
So top 5 for me, I was tied for first between Of Blood and Bone and The Serpent. Those two, I just think they're both great. Souls Asunder is a close behind that. Then I put Incantation and then Eulogy. I thought was good. I find myself actually mostly I go to Eulogy first when I open up the album, even though it's the lowest on the list, because it warms you up to the rest of it.
Yeah. No, I like the fact that we kind of have differing opinions on this because for me, number 1 was Souls Asunder, Leaps and Bounds. Second one was The Serpent because it just goes hard as fuck. Misery Eternal, again, because of the blackened elements. Then Of Blood and Blown, and then Umbra Mortis would be my top 5. And then so to build off that, best verse for me, Of Blood and Bone. Best chorus, Souls Asunder. Best breakdown, The Serpent. Best solo, The Rats in the Wall for me.
I actually went through the album and timed all the time that I thought was like a moshable moment. When I mean that is like a moment that would like you're stop paying attention to the band and you get into that real punchy rhythm where you want to like punch the air and fucking kill somebody for a second. And you're no longer scared of the beefcake running around the fucking mosh pit anymore.
No, you
You're like
target
fucking,
the
yeah, you
beefcake.
fucking start targeting them. So they do have those moments. And so the album is 38 minutes. They had, in my opinion, 5 minutes and 15 seconds of those. I started a timer every time I felt that. And that's about 13% of the album. So you don't want more than half of the album to be moshable. That's like too much. Then you're
Some
too
would probably
hardcore
disagree with that.
for this type of genre. I'm saying,
Well,
yeah.
but for a band like this that has so many elements and really caters to the more symphonic side of things, then yeah, I would agree. 13% is like
I think it's
a
actually
decent
perfect.
amount. Yeah.
It's a perfect amount of mosh. And my only gripe with an album like The Pain Remains, right, is there wasn't a lot of that pull in mosh moments. Actually, there's a lot of mosh fake outs in that album where you're like, yes, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I guess we're going into this blast beat. I think people might think like, well, blast beat's a moshable moment, isn't it? I mean, maybe if you're one of those East Coast fucking crowd killers, but it doesn't give you that head rocking, crazy, like it's the slow beats that give you that give you that mosh moment. Would you agree with that?
I would disagree because I definitely feel like blast beats. I mean, blast beats tend to be the part where people kind of hurricane around. You know, it gets into like the
Exactly.
tornado. I could go either way on that, to
Fair
be
enough.
honest. Yeah. So overall, I would say praises from me for the album. The symphonics were done in a very great way that accented the music, created great atmosphere that fit the theme and the aesthetic of the album overall. I really loved how they incorporated like the 8-string gent and palm mute guitar with like the blackened symphonic elements because I feel like there needs to be more of that. And I'm just a fucking gent junkie, so don't listen to me. But I like that more bands are implementing 8 strings because they just sound fucking heavier. Now, if they got brought up a little more in the mix, fucking, I would have been on cloud 9 with the goddamn album.
For me, I guess my most notable part were the vocals. The guitar parts I love, but the vocals had stood out to me the most. Vilas, the way she went into the lead versus the supporting roles back and forth into them, and Kyle with like his just straightforward deathcore style. that's what I end up listening to. And that's hard. That's crazy for me to say, because I played guitar for 20 years. Usually that's the only thing I listen to. I don't even care about the vocals most of the time. Like when I listen to Shadow of Intent, I'm really not listening to the vocals. Their guitars are amazing. So I really think that the vocals really stand out here more than anything else.
Oh no, I would agree completely. Kyle sounded fucking monstrous, but crisp. It was like a really well-spoken fucking goblin. Like, and I love that.
A
And
goblin,
then paired,
goblin who's read literature.
and he had perfect delivery and execution, especially with those rapid fire moments. Those are my favorite. And then paired with Volis doing the cleans, I mean, it's just masterfully done, dude. You can't even, like, no one can compete on that level with like what she fucking brings to the
I
table.
wonder if that's the English coming out, because Americans just always think the English people are way educated. So maybe we're just hearing the education of the English accent
Yeah, maybe.
in his vocals.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, my overall criticism: guitars and kick drums sat low in the mix. I would have liked more diverse guitar parts and solos. Because yeah, there were some parts that were a little bland. If they do another album, I want to see guitar kind of have more standout moments, because when you're juggling all these elements between Wallace's cleans, Kyle's gutturals, all the symphonic parts, like I felt like the guitars kind of took a backseat in a lot of the parts. Like they had small moments, but they just didn't really stand out as much as anything else. So going forward, I'd like to see more diversity in the guitars.
They could give us like their Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like I'd love to hear an instrumental by them. Yeah, I think they're capable of some pretty awesome shit. So.
Absolutely. Overall, I really enjoyed the album and it deserves recognition for sure. I'm going to give it, and I thought about this pretty hard. So out of a 4 out of 5, and the reason for that, I was going to give it like a 3.5, but the fact that this released, not just among all the fucking countless releases in 22, but it released the same day alongside Pain Remains. So to be that underdog, and then people are paying attention, people are talking about this album, to be able to stand on your own 2 feet alongside a juggernaut, I should say, that was Pain Remains. They just fucking killed it, and I think they deserve all the recognition they get from this album, and I hope they get bigger. They just go fucking crazy going forward with it, with, you know, whatever musical project they do with She Must Burn.
I think that might have been a good thing, because it definitely benefited me as a listener. I've never listened to She Must Burn before this album came out, and I was really getting into the more symphonic, blackened type stuff because of Pain Remains. So it was perfect timing, because I'd listened to Pain Remains and I was kind of getting tired of it. And then I already had this newer album that I could go to. So I think it was actually kind of genius to release it at the same time. Risky, but genius.
Yeah.
It could have gotten overshadowed a lot. I mean, Will Ramos is like pretty much like as top as you can get as far as like recognition right now. People are just really singing his music. So
What's your score?
my score, I would give it only slightly lower. I would go with a 3.8, which in order for them to get to a 4 for me, they'd have to fix a couple of those mix problems.
That's fair.
I don't know if they're mixed problems, you know, in the grand scheme of maybe that's the way they wanted it, and that's cool. For me personally, I would have liked to hear those solo guitar scream.
No, I think we can I think we can definitely give it a 3. We'll give it 3.8 gay vampires out of 5.
Cool. I agree.
Thank you to She Must Burn for allowing us to play clips. Also, please come to fucking America. We want to see you. So they haven't toured since like 2017 or something. That might have been where I was getting the dates mixed up. But they haven't done a North American tour in years. Yeah, please come back to the States. We want to see you. For anybody who's listening, check out Umbra Mortis. If you like what you're hearing, you like our reviews and any of our silly fucking content, feel free to follow us on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. We have our own Discord channel, so follow us, like, and subscribe, and we'll fucking talk to you guys later.
Word to your moms. We're out. Oh, and I'm Drop G.
And I'm
Spot
Solaire.
Solaire. What's the full one?
Sunbro Solaire.